have all gotten what we think is a sneak peek into the luxury real estate world through different reality TV shows, but chances are what we're seeing, Matt, probably not real. Matt Battiata is here working in the real market in San Diego and knows all about it. So let's talk about money. You say people can actually name their own price, so to speak.
Well, I say that because the market here in San Diego, a lot of people really have no idea what their home is actually worth. They might be looking on, Zillow or online sources, and sometimes those are somewhat accurate and sometimes they're way off. But I tell all of our clients, let me know what your number is. In other words, name your price, because in a lot of cases, believe it or not, we can get that price.
Wow.
So the reality is right now in our market, there are no comps to support the majority of our sales. So we tend, it's commonplace right now for us to counter out for our seller clients to counter out the appraisal contingency, because in most cases there are no comps to support a sale. So in other words, whether it's $1 million house or a $5 million house, there are no comparable sales like there normally would be to support it, which means it's not going to appraise at the price. So it comes down to, can we find a buyer willing to pay that, and can we justify that? And in a lot of cases in the current market, we can justify a price that a seller might think is nuts. Everybody has a number. It's not unusual. We have a seller say, if I could get X amount, yes, I would move. And then we go out to our clients and our buyers and the general market, and in a lot of cases, we find a buyer willing to pay that.
Wow.
So, that's the message I would give it. If you're contemplating selling, but and you have a number in your head, let us know what that number is, because I kid you not, in more cases than not, we're able to find a buyer that'll actually pay it.
I'm picturing a couple at home where one spouse says, "Oh, we'll move if we get that," and the one is thinking, that'll never happen. And then you come in and make it happen.
Well, the reality, as I said, is it's rare that we don't counter out the appraisal contingency. And so what that means, by the way, is a buyer, that doesn't mean that a buyer's paying cash. If a buyer's paying cash, you don't need an appraisal. These buyers are getting loans because interest rates, of course, are still at almost historic lows. What it means is we know the house is most likely not going to appraise at the purchase price. And so what we do is we counter out that there's no appraisal contingency. There still will be an appraisal. When the appraisal does not come in at the purchase price, the buyer simply brings in the cash to make up the difference. Or if the buyer's putting enough down, a lot of cases the buyer might be putting 30, 40, 50% down, the bank is fine that it doesn't appraise, and they don't even have to bring in any money to make up the difference. But that's the big difference right now, is that that's why we're able to say name your price, because even in what we consider to be market value cases, most of the time the house is not going to appraise, in which case we're always going to counter out that appraisal contingency anyway.
Well, just as you say, you can name your price. I also like something else that you've come up with. You have this acronym, MOST. Explain to us what that is.
So when we put a house on the market, we typically market the house for usually about a week and a half with no showings, sometimes 2 weeks. We funnel all of the showings literally into one weekend. And the goal is, instead of getting a trickle of showings and a trickle of offers, we do all the showings in one weekend. Therefore, we get multiple offers, and then we can bid up the price. That's a big part of what we do, is ratcheting up the price, so we can bid the price up as high as we can for our sellers. It's also good for buyers, believe it or not, because in a lot of cases, a house goes on the market and it flies off the shelf and sells, and there could be 10 buyers that never even got a chance to see it and make an offer. When we put off the showings for, say, a week, week and a half, 2 weeks, and then funnel it into one weekend, everybody has time to get their ducks in a row and schedule their time so that they all can get a crack at it. And then we always do, a counter offer of highest and best, and that way all the buyers really do have a chance, a fair shot at getting in and making their best offer and winning the property.
All right, Matt, as always, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.